In this video, I'm going to show you how to look good on Zoom so you're going to feel more confident and you're going to impress everyone on your calls. And we're going to use Zoom to help us. So if you really want to take action, let's open up Zoom and start up a new meeting. And then you can see straight away how you're looking. Join with audio if you want to, it doesn't overly matter. It's just that I want you to see that screen there. So that's your starting point. That's where you're at right now. How's it looking? Maybe it's worth recording a few seconds, just simply hitting the record to computer, and then you can keep this as your original and refer back to it when hopefully you've made some changes by the end of this training. Right, well, first I want to just ask what camera you're using. Are you on a built-in webcam in your laptop? Have you upgraded to an external webcam? Are you using a phone? Or maybe you've got a camera. Why don't you let us know in the comments? You're going to see an improvement with each upgrade that you do. And ultimately, I'd love to see you all on a camera like this. But let's consider some tips that will help you regardless on which of those levels you're on. So secondly, let's have a look at positioning yourself naturally. Now, this really applies to anyone that's using a webcam and a laptop because we've all seen this angle, and apologies if that's what you're doing at the minute, but it's not a good angle looking up like this. And simply by placing your laptop on a box or some books, you can get an instant improvement. That looks better, doesn't it? If you're using a phone, then attach it to a USB cable and put it on a little tripod like this. Again, it can really make a difference, and it will just keep it still and it will hold it hopefully at eye level. And if you've been told that you want to be looking up to lose those wrinkles, I disagree with it. It's not natural seeing you looking up to me like this or me looking down to you. I want to connect with you, and I want this to be at eye level as if we were just sitting in front of each other. And if you're worried about the chins appearing under here, then lean forward a bit and maybe not be slouching back. But if you're on your webcam or you're using a camera, just try and get that lined up as well. So regardless of what you're on, we're aiming for a nice eye level shot through here. Then zoom and crop. Most webcams tend to be a wide angle and they can be distorted at the edges as well. And they're picking up a lot of that background behind you. One of the benefits of upgrading to a camera like I'm using here is not only the quality improvement, but also it means I've got some lenses that I can choose between. And as I choose a wide angle one or a close in one, it will make a difference of what's going on behind and how much of that space you can see. And then I like this tight crop that you see here. You're not seeing a full height. You're not seeing my desk. This feels nice. And actually, I have a lot of people say, it really is like you're just sitting there in front of me. And that's what we're trying to achieve when we're on these Zoom calls. Now, with a detached webcam, you're just bringing it in closer to get closer in like this, or moving it back further to get more of the shot in. Same will be true with your laptop, just sliding it forwards and back to adjust how much you can see in here. And then once you've set that up and you're thinking, yeah, that looks good, where do we actually sit within this frame? If you're sitting up too high, that's going to look awkward and uncomfortable. And if you're sitting down low, that just looks weird, doesn't it? Think of a grid being over the frame here, and ideally you want to have your eyes on this top third line here and aim for having a small bit of space just above your head, but no more than that. So have a go at that. All these little things, one at a time, are going to start improving the look that you're getting there. Now let's move on to lighting. And we're really talking about some complementary lighting here, some additional lighting that you're putting in. If at the minute you're just using room lights, I encourage you to get something like this as a light for your filming. Certainly if this is something that you're doing professionally, this is important, this is your business that you're doing. And don't let people overcomplicate this. You don't need to have a 3-point lighting kit. I've literally, as you can see, just got one light here in front of me. And sometimes I have one up on the ceiling just pointing back to cut me out a bit really, because I have a dark background. If I'd got a lighter wall, I wouldn't need to have that light behind me. So I really am using this, and this one light is doing all the work. You can see that when I turn this light off, you realize what's going on in the rest of the room. And you might say, well, why have you got something as big as that? Honestly, this lighting, the bigger you can get the light, the softer it will be. If I just got a very small light in front of me, it's going to create shadows, it's going to cause reflections, and you're going to see the frames of my glasses down here. Big, soft light is the most flattering light that you can have for this kind of work. And might seem obvious, but I ought to spell it out. This light needs to be in front of you. But if you wear glasses, you're going to have to either lift it up a bit or move it to the sides. And look how good that lighting is. This will cost you about $200 for the light and for the softbox that's on the front of it. So It's not crazy money, and for the impact and the ease of use, it is definitely well worth the investment. And I encourage you actually to keep your other lights on in the room. Don't go turning everything off and relying on this one light. You're going to have a real contrast, and it's going to be hard to balance this. So I tend to say have the room lit as you would if somebody was coming to meet you in person. You wouldn't sit in a really dark room. You'd just have your typical room lights on, and then we use this one in front of us just to fill in the shadows and things, which probably you're going to find otherwise. And talking of shadows and things, having a light directly above you is a real no-no. It's going to cause massive shadows under your eyes, under your chin and things. So try and reposition yourself so that you haven't got a light straight above you. Ideally, rather than coming back and having it coming down in front, you'd be better off having it going down the back of you, so maybe just pushing things forwards. Now, somebody's going to be thinking, should we be using natural light? It's a sunny day outside, why don't we use that? And it really does depend on the weather and how long your meeting's going to be. If the weather's consistent, then sure, window light is nice and it's soft, it'll fill the whole room up, but avoid sitting directly in that light coming in, as it's going to cause some shadows and really strong contrast. But a nice bright room can look lovely. Where it can really turn against you is if it's a cloudy day and one minute you've got this bright sun out there and the next minute it's all just gone dark because a cloud's come across and blocked the sun. So I recommend that you stick your head outside, and if it's questionable, just pull the curtains and treat it as if it were evening. Lighting becomes a real problem when you wear glasses, but don't worry about it. I know about this, I got some great tips, and we're sharing that in another video that I'll link to in the description below. And actually, I realize I haven't told you yet that there's a full blog post that sits alongside this video, giving you all the links to those videos that I'm going to keep mentioning. Plus, you'll see that we've created a free Zoom guide with all our tips and tricks. You're going to find that over there too. I'll put a link down in the description for you. So, lighting, tick. What about that background? If you've got Zoom open on your computer, tell me, what's going on back there? If it's not looking great back there, can you rearrange the office a bit to give you a better view? I would try to avoid having a doorway or a window back there if possible, and really to try to shoot towards a plain wall. And then if you want to introduce props, bookshelves, things on the wall, you can do it bit by bit from there. The aim with this background is that we really don't want it to be distracting our viewers, and it wants to present you as a professional. So you might be having to work out of a bedroom, but we don't have to see the bed. Remember, we only get to see that small area. You can't see what else is going on in the rest of the room here. So it might be that you need to get a bit creative and find another bit of space in your room that you hadn't considered. And maybe for the sake of shifting a few things around, it would be a good idea and give you a really nice set background behind you. Now, if you're on a laptop, one cool trick is to pick it up and actually walk around the room and try and find a better location. Think outside the box a bit, and ideally it wants to be somewhere that you can easily return to, or better still, where you can set up a permanent desk situation there. When you've found somewhere and you're starting to think about propping it out, make sure to stay on brand. Imagine you're meeting somebody in real life. What kind of things would you have on your desk, would you have in the room around you that you'd be proud of and you think really kind of fits with the conversation that you're having? I also think Pinterest is a really great place to go and put some ideas together of backgrounds that you think, oh, that would look really nice behind me. Then when you've come up with some ideas and you're getting ready to set this up, I try to give yourself ideally about 5 to 6 foot minimum between where you're sitting and that background behind you. It'll help separate you, it'll blur it a bit, really depends on what camera or webcam you're using, and it will also make sure that you're not casting any shadows across there as well. And I know I'm a little bit OCD, I do like things nice and tidy and put away, but even if you're not, keep your filming space tidy and ready to go. The last thing you don't want to be doing is just about to go onto your Zoom call and you go, oh no, I hadn't spotted that in the background, let me go and fix it. It's just stress that none of us need. Now, there are of course 2 alternatives to having to have a nice tidy background. Firstly, you can blur the background. Zoom added a handy button for this. Right down here next to stop video is a little arrow, and blur my background appears. And look at it, there it is. All of a sudden, magically, our background and all that mess behind us has gone. Personally, I'm not a fan. And if anything, this leads to more distraction as I'm trying to imagine what's actually going on back there. And unless you're using a good camera, it's not going to do a very believable job anyway. Or the second option that Zoom helps us with, still down here, is to choose a virtual background. So if you fancy sitting in front of the Golden Gate Bridge down here in San Francisco, we can do that if we want to. Maybe you're fancying a nice beach scene behind you or the Northern Lights. You can actually bring an image of your own into this if you want to. Personally, again, I'm thinking this probably isn't going to be very professional for most of you, so I tend to turn this off. Again, it really does make a difference if you're working on a good camera like this, or if you've got quite a grainy webcam, that's going to look even worse. Now, if you're interested in those two features, blur in the background or bringing in an image behind you, we've covered them in separate videos that, again, you're going to find down in the description. Now, technically, this next one isn't helping you look good on Zoom, but we've got to talk about audio. To have all this looking lovely and not improve the audio would be a huge mistake. As a minimum, I recommend that you use a USB mic that you can plug in externally, have it nice and close in front of you. Something like the Blue Yeti is very popular. And do make sure then that down here in Zoom, you come up to select a microphone and make sure that you are selecting the right one. And of course, we've got another video specifically helping you to upgrade your audio. So again, it's down in the description. Now, time for some makeup, potentially. If, like me, or you look on camera and you think, wow, my head looks really shiny up there, you can either use something like this transparent finishing powder that's a matte finish, and you just brush it on and it will just take that shine off you. It's the kind of thing that just gets flicked over somebody who's going on TV doing an interview or a news broadcast or whatever it be. So it's pretty standard for folk to just put a bit of this on. Just be careful, because you're going to look like a snowman if you go a bit thick with it. And I realize that some of you wear makeup that deliberately has a gloss to it. I don't know the correct term. And while that might look lovely when you're out and about and meeting your friends, it's really not good on camera. We really want to get a matte finish on here and not have anything that it will reflect. Now, thankfully, rather than needing to brush on any of this makeup, I discovered these little skin wipes that you can get, and I'm actually on my last one. But you can just wipe this across your head here like this, and I find that this does a really good job of just taking off some grease and taking off that shine. Definitely makes a big difference. Now, we've got some virtual makeup here in Zoom. Touch up my appearance is something that you'll find down here under your video settings. So if we click down here, video settings, and what you'll see is touch up my appearance. And what it's going to do is virtually soften our skin. And it's something that some cameras now have as well. This Sony ZV-10 that we've got has this feature built into it too, and it's a little bit more careful than what it is here in Zoom. But let me tick it on and let's have a look at what happens. We've got a slider at the side so we can do minimal. There's nothing applied here at the minute, and then we can go all the way to the extreme, and look at that, it's just got rid of all of those wrinkles. Personally, I don't like this, and I don't want you to be using it. I don't find it believable. I find it fake, and it's a bit like that blurry background. I'd rather just see your face here right in front of me, as if we were meeting in real life. There would be no pressure or no feeling like, oh no, I've got to put something on. We would just meet and talk. So I would really encourage you to try and not be using this and just be showing up as your authentic self. But if you do want to have a go of it, and I can't convince you otherwise, then please just have a go with this slider, and maybe do again a little record only here in Zoom. And if you've got a good friend who you trust their opinion, why don't you say to them, hey, look, what do you think? Am I better with this or without it? So you have been warned. I don't want to see you all out there with these plastic looking faces. Now, while we're talking about appearance, what are we actually going to wear? I want you to dress for success. Just because you're at home rather than sitting in a corporate office doesn't mean you should be any less professional. So get up, take a shower, get dressed, and come to this as if you were about to go to the office or meet a client in person, at least on the top half anyway. So with all the camera upgraded or at least repositioned and the background improved and you're looking sharp, I want you to train yourself to look at the camera as much as possible. And we all struggle with this. It's totally natural to want to look down at people's faces in front of us rather than looking into a camera. But while you're looking down here and smiling away at them and talking like this, they're totally missing the eye contact with you. Certainly at points when you're speaking, try to focus straight on the camera, and you'll be surprised how well you can get used to using your peripheral vision and seeing what's going on down here on your monitor or wherever it is. Or if you're using a camera, we've got a great tutorial on how to use a teleprompter like I'm doing right here, where you can view your guests in front of you, and actually as you're looking at them, you're also looking straight down the lens. So this is a real win. Again, we'll link to that one down below. And here's another quick tip for you. If you're using your camera or your webcam just above your monitor, then instead of having your Zoom window full screen down here, why don't you bring it right to the top of your monitor and minimize it even, and just put it right up there so it's actually much closer that when I look at my lens or look back down here, there's not as big a gap of my eyes traveling away as it would be if I'm looking down here. You can see on that recording there the difference of where my eye's going just by lifting that up or having it back down here. And actually probably keeping it smaller means you're less likely to be sitting looking at it. It's more just there out of the corner of your eye while you're looking up here. And finally, we want to get your settings correct. After going to all this trouble, I want you to make sure that you've got all your preferences in Zoom dialed in correctly. So there's a video right here that it makes sense. Why don't you go and watch it straight away and just run through a quick checklist to make sure that you're all good. And then down there, we've got a guide for you. It's totally free that just gives you all the tips and tricks that we're coming up with in Zoom. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments what bit particularly you found useful, and hopefully I'll catch you in that or another video. Thank you.